guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the buffed Tsurugi. Again, this ship has had a few buffs since it released a few years ago now, and it's a bit of a monster at this point. You may know that I'm not a big fan of 6-gun battleships, but when they're this accurate and they've buffed the reload this hard, well, it's gonna lead to some good times. Broadside Austin to start things off here, and just look at that dispersion. After all that really matters is the shells you land on target. Specifically citadels, yes sir. First Blood Dev Strike. Now, not every salvo is gonna look that good, but the vast majority of them actually are. So the buffs this update 14.0 for the Tsurugi was a slight reload buff from 25 seconds down to 24 seconds now. You also get the improved HE shells, at least as far as their shell velocity goes, so it matches the AP. This is something the Bugno line got overall, and Tsurugi coming out as a premium sort of along that line also gains that buff. Let me know if you want me to check out the Bugno HE buffs. I'm not too interested in them because, you know, I'm here for the black ribbons when I'm playing these ships, especially given the dispersion that some of these ships do have. Just absolutely incredible, but I could take a look at them if you guys want to. The ship also got a turning radius buff from 970 meters down to 890 meters. So a small maneuverability buff, but welcome considering the armor profile on this ship. One of the most exposed and least protected citadels of any battleship at high tier. This ship is very squishy and will die very, very quickly in high tier games, especially when you get up tiered into super ships, which I'll show you towards the end of this video. For now, we've got ourselves perfect matchmaker. We don't got a carrier to deal with, and we're top tier. A rarity these days when we're playing tier 9 ships, unfortunately. As a tier 9, you gotta know that you're playing one of the worst tiers as far as the matchmaker pool goes these days, unfortunately. So many fun tier 9 ships and tier 9 premiums that have some rough matchmaker these days. Maybe if Wargaming could fix that, make super ships only fight at the lowest tier 10s, that would help a lot. This ship also gained another repair party. So initially, you actually only had 3 base repairs. And this wasn't any improved heal either. There's no cooldown reduction or super heal here, nothing at all. So very nice to see it go up to a base of 4, which we can then buff up to 5. So some very nice buffs here for the Tsurugi, and combined with a buff it got a while ago, giving it much better dispersion, this reload here now is absolutely wild. Much like the Republic, which has the benefit of overmatching 30 millimeters of armor, which we do here as well. We have the 457s off Bugno. Only 6 shells, but still, they are Bugno guns. No spotter plane to buff them, unfortunately, but the improved base dispersion here is so nice. That reload allows you to fire at cruisers who are caught bow in and still reload in time before they have the ability to turn away. That's really nice. 30 seconds doesn't quite get you there, but this closer to 20 seconds really will. And is that 1 shell or 2? Oh my goodness, look at this dispersion. And an angled citadel like that, I have no idea how that went through, but I guess we'll take it. Poor Mines, man. I mean, Mines is a really good ship, but tier 8 cruisers, man, no heal. It'd be nice if Wargaming would give them at least some healing. I will say, I really wish we had more healing in this game. Sure, you take a lot of damage, but at least it lets you come back if you make a mistake. It's really hard to play without that. Here, though, with Tsurugi, overmatch plus just this insane dispersion, it's actually better than battlecruiser dispersion. It's the Japanese battlecruiser dispersion. It's a Zuma dispersion, basically. It's a little bit better. So if we look at other battlecruiser dispersion battleships, Ruprecht, Sun Yat-sen, Duncan, Georgia, at 15 kilometers, they have a horizontal dispersion of 174. Whereas Tsurugi has 158. It's not all the way up to cruiser dispersion, but it's a little bit better. And that means even a blind fire like that, triple citadel, absolutely insane. Insane damage output that this ship has. Not only that, we have some of the best concealment in our class as well. Below 12 kilometer detect here, crazy stuff. We're fast too. With brisk, we can hit 40 knots. This ship is awesome to play as a flanking ship, to play undetected and surprise your opponents. Really, really good at that. Just know you're not a very good tank. The armor profile I will show you towards the end of this video, of course. And our bow and stern are 25 millimeters only. Deck armor 32, upper belt 32, and a very exposed weak citadel. So you can't be tanking. You gotta stay outside of that detection and try to surprise people, which this ship can do rather well. The other gimmick here on this ship is the deep water torpedoes. I didn't find them that useful. In fact, I think I only got one torp hit in the entire time I was playing this ship. Maybe I wasn't going for them enough and trying to make use of that gimmick, but given the armor, you don't really want to be brawling battleships, and certainly not with the torpedo firing angles. Forwards, it's extremely difficult to use. Backwards, maybe. Like when you're kiting, you can get them off a little bit easier, but very difficult to use. These deep waters also only hit battleships and carriers with a 15-kilometer range. So they're not even like a Zascio with the 20s either. So 15, given today's meta, yeah, maybe not the most useful, but they do over 20k damage, and you do have a torpedo reload booster as well that has a long cooldown, but you can launch a few torps at a time, given that these ships have only one launcher per side. So really nice, but of questionable utility in most games, at least for me. Maybe I'm not the best with those torpedoes, though. Up to 163k in this one, really nice. Now we'll get to use some of that high explosive, which has really, really high alpha damage, by the way. It's really, really nice to have 7,300 alpha damage. Crazy. They only have a 35% fire chance, though, so it's a little bit less consistent than some of the best HE spammer battleships. You know, things like Conqueror come to mind with around a 50% fire chance, 48, something like that, as well as more shells. We hit a lot of shells on target, though, so it means that we can pinpoint areas of the ship, at least at closer ranges here. So we've already started the rear superstructure fire. Let's go for the bow and the front superstructure fire. So 2 salvos, 3 fires. Maybe not too bad. Maybe not too bad to be spamming this HE, although it does not have the pen. It's got 77 millimeters of pen, which is going to be good enough most of the time. But I gotta say, I'm more interested in the AP salvos. You know me. I like those black ribbons, those dev strikes. And even there, 2 full pens. Maybe I'm too greedy to aim for the bow there in that case. Fortunately, though, our teammates will clean up this Iowa, so we can move on to fire on this Alaska and maybe the Soyuz, who are pushing into the B cap here. Nice close game here. You love to see it. You don't always get these days. So top tier as a tier 9 and a close match. Crazy, crazy good luck when it comes to this matchmaker here. You notice I'm not really pushing that close. I'm really worried about dying quickly. This was one of the later matches I actually had in Tsurugi. Several of them ended rather quickly for me as I died so fast to HE, but also the armor piercing. It just feels like you have a difficult time angling to any AP these days, at least with Tsurugi. The superstructure is kind of big on this ship, as well as, again, that overmatchable bow and stern. It's difficult to take a lot of incoming damage, so you want to play it more like a battle cruiser. Battle cruiser dispersion, maybe a little bit improved, as well as the armor means, sure, it takes up a battleship slot, but you definitely don't want to play it like a full-on battleship, at least at those closer ranges. HE again in on the Soyuz here, and the damage output, well, I guess we got some fires. The alpha damage there, not shining through there, perhaps because he's got a saturated superstructure. The HE will do significantly reduced damage in that case, but 211,000 damage? You know me, I'm not a huge fan of these 6-gun battleships, but this thing performed rather well, I gotta say. There were some inconsistencies too, but Tsurugi performed rather well for me while playing it after this buff. Sure, the reload is only 1 second, a small buff to the turning radius, and maybe that doesn't add up to be a whole lot. Extra heals, I didn't find that useful at all, just because I was either dead or I wasn't actually getting to those heals because I wasn't getting shot at enough. It's really hard to draw that line where you're getting close enough to tank some, to use all those heals, but not so close that you die. So maybe that extra heal wasn't as useful. But some small changes here, and perhaps a change in play style. Getting more used to kiting away initially, reversing in, playing more passive. May have played this ship way too aggressively in the past, and it certainly worked out for me in these games. This match, though, notice into Super Ship Matchmaker. It's very, very difficult to play in these matches as a Tsurugi or any tier 9, let's be honest. Certainly cruisers have it even harder, but for a ship like this one, you will be struggling with the range, but also just the enemy ships have a lot more damage output to farm you down rather quickly and much more overmatch to deal with you. Not just your bow and stern, but a lot of 32 mil overmatching battleships suddenly appear. Hanover, Satsuma, we already had Yamato's in that at tier 10 to deal with, so this ship really can be hurting here. There's an example of the other side of the coin when it comes to battleship dispersion, I suppose. We got ourselves some crazy damage output into the Austin at the beginning, as well as that Iowa blind fire salvo, but it is still a battleship. It can troll you at times. You got to take the good with the bad, I suppose. Now this Goliath is forced to turn away, unfortunately caught in a bit of a rough position, and we will finish him off there with the Citadel. So good to see that there, but our team is rapidly dying here. Very, very tricky to play these matches as a tier 9 and feel like you have any sort of battle impact. Seattle pushing, though, open water, so we'll get our rear guns off on him. And then there's a Howden at 21 kilometers who I don't expect much to come out of this salvo, especially if you've played the Bugno line. You'll know the AP is not amazing at longer ranges. Certainly it's 457, but it feels a lot more like 406s in a lot of the characteristics outside of the overmatch. Yet we get the double Citadel Dev Strike. You can tell how much I was not expecting that by I didn't even watch the shells. I was just sending that salvo out because my turrets were taking a while to turn towards the Seattle, so I thought I may as well fire the front guns at him. I really just did not expect much out of him. Here, getting a little too greedy for some of these salvos on these cruisers, and we show broadside, and we take a Citadel. Yes, if you miss angle, you will be eating Citadels. There is very little RNG that will save you in this ship. It's not a waterline Citadel, it is a well above water, which I like from a gameplay perspective. I think you should get punished for being broadside and misplaying like that. But when you're one of the only ships that it happens to, it hurts. It hurts quite a lot. And you have to be very careful with that angling, I gotta say. Enemy Seattle at longer range, I mean 18 kilometers. Dispersion looks okay, but maybe splashes all around him. But miraculously, we still get that Citadel. Not the dispersion we were looking for, but still got us that black ribbon. RNG live and well with this ship. Here we go. Torpedoes, finally, right? Njord, will we get the salvo here? They're deep waters, so they don't have very much detection. They don't have a lot of reaction time. Unfortunately, we missed the Njord here. But we had another set going for the Montana here. 15 kilometers of range is enough when you're in these kiting positions. The 20s would be more funny, I gotta say, and there we go. We finally land our one torpedo of the video. Maybe 20s would be better in these situations. A little bit easier to use, or the ability to hit cruisers as well. But I can understand why for the flavor text on these Japanese deep waters, like Azashio, they're not going to hit cruisers. Makes sense. But maybe a little more range. Although, do we need more just random torpedoes like that, deep waters? I don't know. I found them not particularly useful, though. But the guns. Surprisingly, very good. Maybe only surprising to me, considering I'm just not a huge fan of 6-gun battleships, but it's not a bad ship. And given that it's really not for sale all that often, I don't know when it's going to be back. It was initially just for bundles. It was one of those loot box gambling ones, but then they brought it back for sale again last year, like springtime or so. Maybe it'll come back again. It wasn't available recently though, so who knows. Cool to see it getting buffed though. It's nice to see them looking at ships that aren't actively for sale to get buffs and make them a little bit better in today's meta. Here, though, dying rather quickly at the end of this game. Not a particularly close match, but still. Notice we barely get over 1 million potential damage before we go down here. So, very squishy ship. You gotta be careful with this one. You can't give too much broadside. Even the HE will farm you down rather quickly. You don't have a lot of HP. Although you have more healing now, so you should be able to come back in those games where you do take a lot of damage or the game lasts a long time. And still, 150k is a good result in a tier 9 battleship, especially in some super ship matchmaker. The ship can do very well, assuming you can play around your concealment. That's the key here with this one. And it seems like Tsurugi then is a pretty good ship. Even if it's not my favorite style of battleship, I kind of prefer the ones that can do a bit of tanking and brawling. This one worked out surprisingly well. This reload buff is very nice, combined with its insanely good dispersion. Yes, only 6 guns, but you still gain a lot of consistency out of that dispersion, and especially that reload. You still have amazing overmatch, 21.1 second reload here. The HE is very good as well, so don't count that out. Even if I do tend to spam more AP, you guys should probably shoot more HE than I do. I should as well. I'm just too greedy for those those black ribbons, man. I really, really like it. As for the speed, very, very nice. 11.5 detect is crazy for overmatching guns. Overall, yeah, I do think these battleships with such powerful guns overmatch against those cruisers shouldn't be out-detecting some of those cruisers that they overmatch, just as a general rule in the game, but this exists, and it is very, very powerful. Decent torp protection as well, surprisingly. But here is that armor profile, 25, 32, rough. Very, very difficult to deal with this. And when you're kiting, though, you do get a little bit of nice aft end plating, so you're a little bit better when kiting, I would say. But the other problem is your citadel is weaker in the back, so you need this plating. So if we take everything else away and look at just our citadel, 76, and that's only protected by 25. So if there's any plunging fire here, yeah, very, 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 very bad armor here. And even for the broadside armor here, we see that it's 305 only. Yeah. It's very, very tricky to survive in a Tsurugi if you're in any sort of crossfire. You do have to play it rather passive. Angled always. Never get caught bow in. Or if you do, make sure you're well outside of your detection range so you can always go dark. That's really, really important. As for the build that I was running, it's actually not quite this one. This is for Bugno, where I want that spotter. Here we don't get that spotter, so I was running a gun feeder build. I've already respec'd the commander, though, that I was using, so this one's close to what I was using. But actually, I think I would change it. I do think I would change it, so let's just grab one here. I would probably run this. Bit of a weird, greedy build to not even go for that 5th heal, but I'll be honest, man. I did not get to my 5th heal. I was either dead, or I just didn't need to heal at all because I was so healthy in these games. There was really no opportunity to get to 5 heals and really make use of this. So this is 4 points that I would rather spend somewhere else. The games that I had Brisk, I really liked. I really liked having Brisk. I really like having Grease the Gears, especially if you have an improved commander as well. Getting it close to 30 seconds feels pretty good, especially when you have such a fast reload. You really notice when those guns are taking so long to turn. Even though it's not that long, 30 seconds can still feel like a long time when you're used to a 20-second reload. As for the last 2 points, I really don't know what I would put them in. Maybe AA defense, just for the 40% consumable prep time in those games. You could go consumables expert, you could go emergency repair and preventive maintenance. I don't know what to do with those last 2 points. I haven't really thought it through enough yet. But something like this, I know a lot of greed, lots of greed, but hey, it worked out. If you're less interested in greeding out a build like that, you could do something like a more standard build like the recommended ones here and have a perfectly good time. But for me, I like the extra alpha and I like the extra reload. And certainly in a playstyle like this, with a ship with this bad of armor, we don't want to be getting in such a close range brawl where we're taking those permanent fires and are unable to disengage. That's kind of the idea here around this playstyle. Maybe the build contributed to more passive gameplay as well on my part, but it doesn't feel like I want to be brawling anyway, even if I tried to build for it. So that's going to do it for today on the Tsurugi. Very, very interesting ship now. Even if it's not my favorite playstyle, it's pretty strong. It is very, very powerful. And let me know if you want to see a Bugno HE build. Oh, feels bad to even say that, man, given how incredible that one is when we're spamming the AP and finding those dev strikes. But hey, that did get buffed, and I do think it could be rather incredible. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.